Welcome now. Our next speaker is from FAO in Rome. Annalisa Conte, Chief of the Cash for Change Service, and you're going to be talking about cash and voucher transfers, helping with food security. And I will go down so I can see your presentation again.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to give you a brief presentation, which I hope then will sparkle some questions about the work that WFP is currently doing with the use of cash and voucher transfers for food assistance, with the objective to improve food security, whether this is for relief or for development. So WFP introduced cash and vouchers quite recently, only in 2008. And this was part of a transition from food aid to food assistance in order to have a much wider, broadened toolbox and being able to deliver a hunger solution in order to reduce food insecurity. While cash and vouchers transfers are often debated in the case of or in the sector of social protection or to increase resilience, in WFP we talk about cash and voucher transfers also to meet relief needs. So much shorter interventions and more of emergency oriented. For WFP, the ability to shift among different tools, cash, food, and vouchers, is definitely an incredible shift because now we have the possibility to better tailor our response to the context and also maintaining the response relevant throughout the different phases from the immediate emergency response to the relief, rehabilitation, and development. And therefore, now we have the possibility over the span of the time span to use different transfer modalities or to associate different transfer modalities, hopefully making our intervention much more effective than what it was until recently, when WFP could intervene only with in-kind food transfer. Despite the fact that these tools are relatively new in WFP, as to date, we have cash and voucher interventions in more than 40 countries, and we are present in about 80 countries, so 50% of our countries. It is still proportionally very small. It represents slightly more than 7% of the WFP program of work. But if we look at it in real or in absolute term, it is not so tiny because 7% correspond to $340 million that have been programmed in 2012 to assist beneficiaries in these countries. And in terms of beneficiaries, it means to reach about 4 million people. So small for what it is WFP size, but quite large compared to other experiences in the application of cash and vouchers. Now I'm going to take you through just a few examples of where WFP is or has been using cash and voucher transfers. Here we have the example of Palestine, where we introduced the electronic vouchers, and this is a joint effort, WFP and the Ministry of Social Affairs. The use of vouchers was introduced to protect the livelihoods and enhance the dietary diversity of urban food insecure households, but at the same time also to enable the beneficiaries to purchase their own food and in particular local products directly from the shops behind the corner. And as a result, to invest in local communities, I think that this morning we were also talking about this, stimulate the economic activity and also the employment. Did we succeed? Well, some of the project outcomes have showed that there was a significant improvement in the household dietary diversity because those vouchers were designed to allow beneficiaries to buy very particular type of foods, in particular the fresh commodities, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, everything that the WFP can't distribute in kind. So dietary diversity has largely increased. Also, shops were very happy because there was an increase in sales. Of course, these vouchers could be redeemed only in local shops, and therefore this type of approach seems to be quite of a win-win situation, because on the one hand, we met our objective to provide better food consumption to our beneficiaries, but at the same time, also the non-beneficiaries had a significant positive impact. We also tried to quantify the multiplier effects or spillover effects, particularly with regard to employment. And indeed, we could measure that the employment increased from 1 person to 2.4 employees per shop due to the increased demand or number of customers going to those shops. With regard to the beneficiaries, at the end of the day, to give them in kind or to give them a voucher is different, but it is not so different. However, they were very positive about the program because this gave them the opportunity and the flexibility to choose the food items that they wanted to eat, and also reinforced their dignity. Another example comes from West Africa, Burkina Faso, where also there we used vouchers. Once again, it was a joint effort between WFP and the Ministry of Social Affairs. The objective of the intervention was to protect the livelihoods of the poorest households, that they were affected by the high food prices in 2008-2009. And here we are talking about urban population. At the same time, we also wanted, also in this case, to enable beneficiaries to purchase local products directly from the grocery shops. But not only this. When we assessed the situation, we identified that the high food prices did not have a negative impact only on the poor households. It also had an incredible impact on the retailers that they were working in those neighborhoods, because the number of customers had declined due to the declined purchasing power, and they were no longer able to continue to maintain the same business. So we were confronted with a much wider spectrum of people that they were negatively impacted by the high food prices. Even here, we tried to measure the impact of this program. While poverty persisted, and this has been a problem throughout the country, what we found was that those households that had received this assistance their poverty was contained, was mitigated. And the prevalence of severe food insecurity dropped despite the fact that the poverty did not improve. Their food insecurity or the prevalence of severe food insecurity dropped from 80 to 65%. And definitely what was measured was that the majority of the beneficiaries could increase their food intake, not only in terms of quantity of food, but also of quality of food. Another example comes from Kenya, and it is a very important project for WFP because this is, I would say, the very large cash transfer that WFP has currently. We are assisting 80,000 households in Kenya through conditional cash transfers, so no longer vouchers but cash. The objective of this intervention is to increase the resilience of households. Now, these households had already been assisted by WFP previously, but through in-kind transfers. And since 2010, we have progressively shifted them from in-kind to cash transfer. One of the important aspects of this transition is that beneficiaries have access to food more or less as they used to have in the past with in-kind. The difference is that now they buy it on the market. But what is important, similarly to what we experienced in Burkina Faso, is that there is also a positive impact on the market. It is really a two-way result and outcome. As I said, if we look at our beneficiaries only, to give them in kind or to give them cash doesn't really change much with regard to the food consumption, because if we give them in kind, they will eat what we are giving. If we give them cash, as they are extremely poor, they use most of that cash transfer to buy food. But it creates new dynamics. And in fact, this chart represents that 66% of the households are using the 100% of the cash that they receive to buy food. But then we have another 24-25% of households that they use most of the cash to buy food, but then they are also able to address other basic needs, primarily the school fees, but also to pay for health, to buy farm inputs for income-generating activities and for other needs. This cash transfer is done through village banking. And despite the fact that it is not in WFP mandate to go or to promote financial inclusion, eventually the use of this specific transfer modality or transfer mechanism has proven to be quite interesting, because these people that they live in rural areas, and as you could see in this slide, the bank is really a little track going to the villages. This has created a new interaction for them. And on top, Equity Bank, that is the WFP financial partner in this project, has also been offering financial literacy to this beneficiary. And the result is, as we see here, that these people now are thinking in another way. Now that they have these cash resources, which very often we are afraid that by giving them cash, perhaps they are not going to use the cash wisely. Indeed, it is not the case. Yes, there are always outliers that will use the cash in order to drink alcohol or in some other cases, I don't know, to get the third, the fourth, or the fifth wife, I don't know. But the vast majority, I would say that they really intend to create savings and use those savings to build resilience and being able to withstand shocks whenever they are affected by a drought, by a flood, or even by some family problems, like paying for a funeral or some illness. So I just provided you a few insights around the three examples. I could give you many more examples. But what is important is that by using these other transfer modalities, we create new opportunities. We are also faced with the new challenges. In terms of opportunities, definitely we see that cash will stimulate local markets. However, we should not use cash whenever the market is not developed, or it is not the situation is not conducive for additional demand. Beneficiaries become decision makers. Particularly when they remain in the program for several months, they learn how to manage these resources. In several cases, the use of cash and voucher transfer proved to be cost efficient. It is a way to push or to interact better with the government in order to get or to support government-led social protection programs. And therefore, it will create new opportunities to hand over these programs to the government. As a challenge, well, of course, new capacities are required because we need to understand the market much better. We need also to understand which systems, or to create new systems to deliver the assistance in the form of cash or vouchers. We have to interact much more with the private sector. And another challenge, at least that the WFP has been experiencing so far, is that while the in-kind transfer was heavily criticized, now that we have these new tools, we found that intervening or providing assistance with these new tools is not attracting more contributions from donors. So operations remains underfunded, even if we try really to be innovative. And this hampers the results because I think that also from the beneficiary point of view, to be the recipient of a bag of maize or being the recipient of $10 or $15 per month change the interaction. So if 1 month WFP is not coming with a full bag of maize, okay, they may understand. The truck is late, the truck will arrive. But if we are not there with the $10 or $15, it's not exactly the same. And therefore, sustained and regular funding is becoming a very critical component in the success of this type of programs, and particularly if we want to use this type of interventions to create multiplier effects, sustained and regular funding is absolutely critical in achieving these results. So thank you for your attention.